Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is our Arsenal preview series, our show in which we look ahead to Arsenal's next game. We've not been able to do this as frequently as I might like, and I'm glad to bring you our preview show back, and hopefully we'll be back in full flow going forwards throughout the course of the rest of the season as well. So apologies, but hopefully we're going to be back and ready to do regular previews. Everything's been a bit hectic, and it might still be a bit hectic for a couple of weeks, but hopefully we'll be getting back to the groove of things, especially after the new year. Apologies for a slightly late start. We've had a couple of technical things we've been sorting out. Hopefully we've got a plan to deal with it. It's nothing to do with me. It's all Marcus's fault. You know, he'll explain himself in a second. But good evening, good morning, good afternoon, where you happen to be in the world, for joining us tonight. Good morning to good. I say good morning. It could be good morning. Good evening, good afternoon to Junior, to Bakary Lasagna, Temi. We've got Keith and Damien and Chris. Wellness, Stuart. We've got other Stuart in the chat box as well. Mehdi, Damien, plenty more of you guys. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. It is very much appreciated. Let's introduce to you my guests from our Discord server. First of all, joining us is Marcus. I'm unmuting
you now, mate.
Thank you. Tommy's controlling my voice today, so hey, apologies if I'm silenced.
Yes, Marcus is going to be silenced by me every time that he's not talking. I left it a little bit longer, so you got a little taste of what happens when Marcus isn't unmuted. You can hear me repeating myself over and over. So yes, we're only going to be speaking to Marcus when he's spoken to. It is how this is going to be working. We're also joined by Alex. Alex, how you doing?
So I didn't unmute myself in time. Yeah, I'm not.
What is this?
Yeah,
See, Alex actually can control his microphone in this time.
Yeah, I'm allowed to speak. But no, I'm doing all right. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to another international break, but at least we've got a little bit of football before we get back to it again.
Indeed.
But yeah.
I think, you know, I've started to try and appreciate these international breaks for what they are, which is a break. And sometimes breaks are really important. And sometimes you can have a little bit of, you know, a weekend without Arsenal is not always the worst thing in the world. There is more to life to enjoy. So family, friends, gaming, you know, Spider-Man 2 is out for a lot of people I know. I don't have a PlayStation myself, but I'm sure people are going to spend plenty of time doing that. And also, and it's always fantastic on these preview shows when we welcome a brand new debutant onto the channel. And I'm very happy to join from the chat box is old Dave. How you doing, old Dave?
Doing good.
Fantastic stuff. Are you excited, nervous? How are we feeling?
Oh, I'm excited.
Good. I'm glad. Most people send me saying, I'm really nervous about coming on, and I understand.
I'm nervous too, yeah.
There you go. There it is. It's already bleeding through. Lovely stuff. Tell us, I know you're based in New York. It's always interesting to learn about overseas fans. Now they became an Arsenal fan. So tell us, how did you learn the love of Arsenal?
That's a long story. I'll try to shorten it up. But I had a buddy that played soccer in college way back. We call it soccer. I call it football now, but and he always for the last 25 years followed Arsenal, and I would joke with him, laugh at him, and probably like the ESPN app, I like to just keep up with stuff. So I would just keep up with, even though it was his team. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, just got into it. Like, the best I can explain is you with golf is me with football.
What? So you're terrible at football? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not going to admit it, but I'm terrible at it. My takes are probably terrible, but I won't admit that. So
fair enough. Yeah, well, I am terrible at golf. So when you said it's like you with golf, I think we knew where the conversation was going. Arsenal, of course, this weekend face Burnley, a side that are pretty darn dreadful. Not to tempt fate in any way, shape or form, but they are pretty awful. So Marcus, tell me, how are you feeling ahead of this one?
Yeah, I'm confident. I know my last few times have not been good against them, but that was the dire era. We've moved on, and yeah, Company plays a nice open style, which should suit us nicely. So yeah, I think after the midweek that helped. If we hadn't had the midweek win after last week, maybe not as confident. But yeah, no, confident we can do this one.
Yeah, I think it was really important to get the win in midweek and obviously follow that on from the disappointment of Newcastle. But this is obviously, on paper, the first Premier League game since that defeat. So I guess that's still certainly fresh in the minds. Alex, we really saw, a side that looked at the beginning of the game against Sevilla and then continued throughout, a side that wanted to respond from that Newcastle game, from kind of the adversity, from all the talk that had gone after that game. Are you confident that momentum and that kind of spirit and determination is going to be continued and carried on into this one as well?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think as everyone knows, they've had not the greatest start to their time in the Premier League, probably stylistically the worst out of all of them, I'd say, all of the promoted teams. And they've got some injuries as well, which I was just looking at before we came on, actually. So that's, their striker, Lyle Taylor, I think he's out.
And
Foster,
is it Lyle Foster?
Lyle Foster, sorry, yeah.
He's out because of mental health at the moment. Yeah. And Vincent Kompany actually did a really good video, if you've not seen it, on the Burnley website and their Twitter page explaining that situation. So I certainly recommend people go and check that one out.
Yeah, but I think we'd expect us to get a result, but again, the complacency can't come in at all. Because we don't want to. I think if you have 2 wins, then it looks a lot better than 3 losses and 1 win towards the end of this period before we go into a break, and want to carry on that momentum over the break and into when we come back, because we've got 3 teams that. I mean, I don't want to tempt fate, but ideally we want to be getting 9 points from the next 12 points from the next 4 games, or from the next 3, however you look at it. But we just want to get back above Spurs, really. That's my aim.
Indeed. And, Spurs play Wolves this weekend in a tough game, and they've lost Maddison. Obviously, Romero and Van der Ven will both be missing for this game, one because of suspension, one because obviously a longer-term hamstring issue. Adoji is suspended as well. They really are going to struggle in terms of that team selection, but it is Spurs, and they are the luckiest team in the league, so you can never count them out. But yeah, of course, you mentioned 12 points. Burnley is the first of 4 games. The Premier League, there is expectations of maximum points across them all. We've got Burnley, then Brentford. We've got Luton Town, of course, in there as well. Before that, I think is what's the other one? What am I forgetting? There's another one. What's the 4th? Everyone's mind's gone blank. I reckon Marcus knows, but he can't tell me. But there's another team in there. It's really going to bug me now that it skips my mind. But it's Luton, Brentford, Burnley, and I can see old Dave's on his phone frantically trying to find it. But it will come. Someone in the chat box is going to tell us. I'm now. Oh, that's so irritating. Wolves, thank you. I'd already said them because of Spurs. Now I'm going to get a whole. You're going to see the chat box explode in a second with Wolves. Everyone shouting it, wolfing in the chat box. But yeah, Dave, when it comes down to the expectations, obviously there's this kind of talk about these. It's a nice group of fixtures, but in some ways that comes with, as I say, an expectation, because you can go to Newcastle and drop points and have a discussion around that. And, we all say it's a tough place to go. And if there are going to be teams that drop points there all season. But whilst the next 4 games, sure, are nicer, in some ways they're not as nice, because anything other than a win, most people would say is unacceptable. So how do you deal with that?
Just play them one at a time.
It sounds like Arteta, doesn't it? Playing one at a time is a good way of tackling.
That's how I watch him too.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, one at a time. Worry about the titles and cups and trophies at the end, but I just enjoy every game.
Every game is important. What specific things are you worried about with this Burnley team in particular? I mean, have you seen much of them? I would be surprised if you haven't, because most people haven't. But are you surprised that they've been so poor? Because there was a lot of kind of hype around Vincent Kompany and what he'd done in the Championship. And obviously they came up quite comfortably. And now we're in a situation where they're really struggling. So is there any fear on your side about this Burnley team?
I wouldn't say fear. I think, football can be crazy. And, I assume they'll sit back in a low block and, if they can keep us out, and we have at times had trouble scoring, and then you never know, they get loose or we make a mistake at the back end, and then all of a sudden, we're in a tough game. But I I'm pretty confident, which worries me in some ways because maybe I shouldn't be, but I like our chances.
Yeah, I like this comment from Amira that says, I'm more worried about Arsenal than Burnley, which I
Yes,
think is
yes, Amir,
it's probably
that
the
is
fairest
accurate.
way. Very accurate indeed. Marcus, obviously, I want to kind of touch upon the Burnley thing with you as well, because our record against them with Sean Dyche was obviously a bit up and down. They've come to the Emirates and got results against us. We've gone to Turf Moor, when Sean Dyche was there, and we really struggled to break them down. Vincent Kompany wants to play football. He brought in players that was to completely change the system, the philosophy of how they played. And if I'm being very honest, it might have worked in the Championship, but in the Premier League, it has left them really exposed. And because of that, they've been beaten fairly comfortably by a lot of teams. So is it arguably the most favourable Burnley side that we've ever faced in the Premier League?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, you're spot on. It's the Dyche era was physical. Let's bully them, harass them, stop them, play the low block, defend, don't do anything else, and then invariably they'd have some big lump up front who'd score a goal or something. Was it Chris Wood, wasn't it? He used to torment us. I think the last couple of games we've lost at home to him or drawn and lost, so we're not going to go back. But this is different. Kompany's playing into our hands if he plays his style, which is, he likes to play open attacking football. Hopefully that will suit us, and we can get a good comfortable win.
Fingers crossed, indeed. In terms of Arsenal, Alex, obviously there's a lot of talk around injuries and players not being available. Huge doubts surrounding Ødegaard and Jesus. Still, of course, Partey. We've hit some really bad news that it's a much longer term injury than we first thought, because he's had to undergo a procedure. But there's suggestions that maybe he'll be back towards the late end of December. I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. Obviously, Eddie Nketiah looked out, but has trained today, which is obviously a really positive sign. I feel like there's so many others. Yuri and Timber, of course, we know is out as well. But how have you seen Arsenal? How do you feel about Arsenal dealing with this constant kind of upheaval of injuries, meaning that we can't nail down a consistent starting 11?
I think I get quite frustrated about the injury situation, to be perfectly honest. I think it's something that we could have addressed in the summer, and we chose not to for whatever reason. They're going to have their reasons for doing it.
I'm gonna challenge you on that. What do you think we could have done?
Okay. Firstly, I think we needed a striker.
Okay.
Like we look at. I mean, I know people will say, "Oh, well, Trossard's coming and he's done really well," and I completely agree. However, I think you look at where we've suffered in terms of scoring goals. It's when Jesus got injured and Nketiah came in and bar the hat trick. He's not done much for me personally. I think we could have, and I think that creates extra options as well. It forces you to, you have thoughts about who you're going to play up front rather than being forced to play one person. And then I think a defensive midfielder was another area. I know we signed Rice, so people. Again, Rice is someone who can play 90 minutes, and touch wood. I don't have anything wooden around me, but if I could, I would. And you want backup to him as well. There's this constant thing about Jorginho not being quite what we wanted. I don't know what people are expecting myself, to be honest. I expected him to be exactly what he's good at doing, which is keeping control at times, not being a bit defensively fragile. And I think we struggle with the injuries because we've not got enough to back up. It showed when we had two goalkeepers on the bench because we didn't have anyone else.
Well, it's interesting that I think that there's on that point, the Ødegaard injury, by the way, was really late. And so I think that played a part in why there was two keepers rather than a youth player, because usually what you have is you have what they call the 21st man that goes along with squads, and it usually is another goalkeeper just in case there is an injury to one of the two. So last season or the season before last, Arthur Okonkwo was that third player quite a lot. But I think the biggest discrepancy and the concern that is definitely valid is that the money we spent on Havertz, could that have been better spent? I think could it have been spent more smartly or shrewdly? because we were facing financial restrictions. We were facing a situation where we signed Raya on loan because of financial fair play. And we talked about that a lot. And we know that his agents come out and spoke to AFTV recently, I think it was yesterday, with those quotes confirming that story that we've been discussing on here for quite some time. And the only way we could have reinforced the striker position was to do something different to Havertz. And for me, I feel as though that the striker position is actually kind of like third on my list in terms of like what I would have done, because I would have looked at centre midfield and I would have looked in the wide area to back up Saka. But I think the striker is definitely something that needs to be addressed. And if we can upgrade on Nketiah, and the way I would do that is by using Jesus as the upgrade and then upgrading on Jesus, then great. It's just that summer window. I think the only real point I have on how it could have been made better is the reallocation of funds that was spent on Havertz. I will let you respond to Alex. Go on, because it'd be unfair to move straight on.
Yeah, no. I completely see that. I think for me, winger was something that I'd look at as in terms of a hybrid role. When I say I look at somebody who can play up front, there's plenty of forwards who can play up front and on the wings. But I think the midfield is difficult because, if Havertz had come out and scored 15 goals, or, well, obviously not by now, but like in general, if Havertz was scoring goals, then you probably wouldn't bat an eyelid at the fact that we aren't scoring that much. But because we're not scoring very much, then you're looking at it and you're thinking, did we reinforce where we needed to? And I've been calling for a new striker for about 3 seasons. So, for me, it's difficult because it's such a blaringly obvious thing. And when you let a player like Balogun go, then that for me is like, well, we've let him go and we've said, we've got options. We've got Trossard, we've got Nketiah, and we've got Jesus, which would be fine. But because they're not scoring, it's no longer fine. And, I'll probably be saying a different thing otherwise. But I think winger with Saka is a difficult one because ideally you probably want Saka playing almost every game, which is what they've obviously tried to do. So you're looking to try and sign somebody who's happy to sit behind him. And at the moment, that player is Reece Nelson, really. And, we've seen Jesus occasionally pop up on the right, but there's not many players out there who I think Arteta would go, yeah, let's sign him, who are going to want to play maybe 10, 15 games a season, or maybe gets a chance in the Champions League, or if Saka's injured. And I mean properly injured as opposed to being knocked, which is pretty much every player on the pitch.
And every single game as well. It's very strange. It is. Apologies to those in the live chat having some connectivity issues with this, by the way. It's fine on this end, and I did play it back as well while Alex was speaking there, and it seemed fine. So we'll push through. It might correct itself after it's finished being live. So apologies about that. Dave, when it comes to that midfield replacement, the name at the moment, and I will discuss it even though this is a preview show, but just to touch on it, is Douglas Luiz. How do you feel about Douglas Luiz being the guy for Arsenal to go for?
I don't know if he's the guy for me.
Why is that? Because I think you share the opinion of a lot of people about him.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like maybe I'm too greedy. I don't know. I like Zubimendi. And it's hard to I don't, as I said, I am a rookie at this. So when we start branching out into these minor leagues, and lesser teams than Arsenal, then I don't have as broad of a knowledge of it. So
of course. I think that certainly plays into maybe a wider perspective on a player like Luiz. I said it on this morning's show, I think that if views on Luiz haven't changed for yourselves since last summer at all, that I think maybe shows that you've not necessarily seen too much of him in the last 18 months, which is fair enough because, who's watching Aston Villa every single week compared to Arsenal? Why would you? Unai Emery's teams are not very attractive to watch. But in terms, I know they score plenty of goals, of course, but it's not for me. But I think with Douglas Luiz is that he has progressed, obviously, since that point. And Arsenal clearly wanted him at that level in 2022, and that interest has seemingly continued onwards. It's just, I think, a deal that would cost Arsenal a hell of a lot of money. I don't know where that money's coming from to do it. It was 25 million with a year left on his deal, and now it would be a lot more with a lot more years left on his deal and having been in form and playing really, really well and a bit of the flavour of the month. So a tricky one for sure. I think we should move and focus back on Burnley and go through our lineups. Alex, I think we're starting with your team, mate. So talk us through it.
Yeah, so I think we're going to have a fair amount of the ball. So I've put Zinchenko in ahead of Tomiyasu. I think that if Burnley were playing how they have done in previous seasons, I might have gone with Tomiyasu due to his physicality, height, but they're not. So, I think Burnley have really struggled because they've kept playing the same way that they did in the Championship, but they're now a team who are not as good as any of the others in the Premier League, and you're playing against teams that are dominant in the same way that they want to be dominant. So Zinchenko's in there. Jorginho and Rice are, they're in purely for control. I think Rice can have a really, really good game. Then the main things people probably be wondering about, Nelson. I have no idea if Saka will play or not.
Yeah,
but if he's got an injury, then I would say that Reece should come in. I think there's no harm in giving Saka a rest. I don't know if it means that he's hurt, and I obviously don't want him to be injured. But I think if that is the case, then Reece Nelson has done enough to deserve a chance. He's been relatively direct when he's come on, which is something that I think excites people in a similar way to Martinelli and Saka did, certainly against Seville. Maybe they've, not to slate them at all, but maybe not in the same way that they've done in the last sort of 4 or 5 games. I think they've been slightly off it, maybe a little bit. And then I'm hoping that Trossard can repeat his performance against Seville, which was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, without question. I think it's a good team when it comes down to it in regards to Saka's absence. If you don't have Saka, I think you're smart in using both Jorginho and Rice to give you a passing foundation as well. You could use, I suppose, Vieira, or you could push Trossard to right and go with Havertz up top, and move Vieira or somebody else into that other midfield slot, I suppose, if you wanted to push it. But it shows you how thin we are, doesn't it? And as you were mentioning earlier on, when the options, and I think that certainly that's why I mentioned like the wide areas is something that I think I'd like to see Arsenal to invest in, but it's just difficult to find that option. Marcus, next we're going to go to you, mate.
Yeah, gone for Raya in goal. I just can't see him dropping him at the moment. It's just bizarre. A month ago, he was the most stable, cool, calm, collected keeper, and he's just a nervous wreck now. But yeah, I can't see anyone Ramsdale coming back. Gone for Zinchenko at left back. I prefer Tomiyasu, but I don't know what the injury situation is, and I'd rather not risk him in this game. Although bizarrely, you're on about what we could do in midfield. Zinchenko played was right wing in the end on the other night. He was just, you could play him anywhere. So, but yeah, I've gone with him at left back. Usual suspects in the middle of the park: Gabriel and Saliba. Benny Boy White on the right. Again, I hadn't seen the notes from earlier, but I assumed Odegaard was out. So Rice went for Havertz. Thought he had a really good game the other day. He just needs a goal. I think once he gets a goal, things are going to really change for him. The one he curled around the post, so unlucky. Thankfully, I didn't see the header early on, but it sounds like it was a bad miss. Up front, Martinelli, Trossard, as Alex said, had a great game. Give him a go up front again. And I think Saka will be okay, but Alex was right. You just never know with him. I hope he is, but if there's a slight doubt, no, I'd put him out and put Nelson on the wing. And Martinelli, who was unbelievable. I think the right back of Seville is still having nightmares after the other night, so he's gone with my star man.
Lovely stuff. I think Martinelli was excellent on Wednesday. Sorry, I think he was so good at just the direct play. And I was saying this as I said on the show the other day to Harry at half time, I just want him to do something one stride sooner, just one stride earlier. And I think that takes him from where he is now to another level. Obviously, the execution has to be there as well with his crossing, etc. But I feel like he always goes that one stride too far. And if he just reined it in slightly and was a little bit more measured, I think he'd find himself taking things to an even higher level. We'll finish off the lineups before mine with Dave's, of course. So go on, Dave.
Yeah, so Raya, I would probably prefer Ramsdale, but at this point it is what it is. So that's what we're going with. The back line, I got to have Tommy in there somewhere, the way he's played the last month or two, and decided that White needs a little break. That midfield, obviously I'd like to have Odegaard in there, but that is what it is. And I got to tip my cap to Alex there, putting Reece on the right wing. I wanted to. I love Reece Nelson. I think he does not get enough credit, and especially a game like this, because he hustles back on defense, and he's gonna help us if somebody gets loose. So I hope at least we do see him and we get up and we get to rest Saka. But going with that front three, because I realized if I put Reece in there, it means I believe that Saka is hurt, and I don't want that. So that's who I got.
Lovely stuff. No, I like it. And I think Tomiyasu, you know me, and I know you said this before we went live about playing him on the right. I think that's like my least favourite role of his, but he's still certainly capable of playing it. And if you want to rest White, he is the obvious pick to go into that role. So yeah, other than if you're Thomas Partey and you're fit apparently in Arteta's mind, but there you go, that's another story. Just to talk about my team quickly, I've gone slightly different. I think I've tried to experiment a little bit. I really want to see Trossard playing as an attacking midfielder in this team and playing behind somebody. And I know that it's maybe a little bit controversial, but he was so good in pre-season playing in this position. Scored that fantastic goal against the All-Stars, of course, playing slightly deeper. And Nketiah, again, with Jesus' fitness still very much in question, I feel as though he's going to be called upon. And so giving him opportunities to play, I think is always beneficial. But I don't. You can't drop Trossard after what he did in midweek. So it's just about trying to find a balance of that attack. And White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko. Tommy's not there because there are question marks. We don't really know how available he is. So we'll have to wait and see, I guess. But if not, obviously Zinchenko is the obvious pick. Starman's Rice, because I think it's the most predictable star man you can ever choose. Like he's always just so good. And I've just felt like, I don't know, like I get obviously willing Havertz into a positive form is certainly worth doing. And players like Martinelli and Trossard, of course, have had major impacts as well. And I see the reasoning behind it, but it's really boring and simple. And as old Dave says, it's just too easy. It is too easy, but that is exactly why I've done it, because it is just the obvious pick. And, I'm always the hipster when it comes to certain choices of things, but this time I've gone mainstream and I'm not going to be told otherwise on that one. So there you go. Right, we're going to go to predictions. Chat box, get your score lines in. Marcus, I need scoreline and scorers, please.
Going for a shock myself, I'm going to say we keep a clean sheet at home. 3-0, Trossard, Martinelli, and Havertz is going to get his goal from open play.
Lovely stuff. I really, really hope you're right. Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to go 3-0 as well, but I'll go 4-0 to keep it diverse. And I'll go with Trossard getting one. I'm going to go with Gabriel getting a header. And then I'll go for 2 for Martinelli today, hopefully. I mean, I know I said Havertz was going to be the star man, so I should really say Havertz will get 2. But it was an optimistic star man at this point. So
he'll be really influential. That's how he's going to get his star man picks. Exactly. There you go. Dave?
I also think the defense is going to do the job and keep a clean sheet. And I also wanted to go 3-0, so I can't do that. Can't go 4-0.
You can.
So
there isn't a rule.
I gotta go 5-0. I'm going 5-0.
You're the type of people that go out for a dinner, and then if someone else picks what you're having on the menu, you choose.
I can't do it.
So, I am like that.
I don't know who's scoring all these goals, but Trossi's going to have another hat trick of assists.
Lovely stuff. So did you say 3-0 then, or 5-0?
I said 5.
5, yeah. Wait, so yeah, I'll be very honest with you. I was going to say 3-0, and now I can't. So, and then it's like, well, I was going to say 4-0, but now I can't. And then obviously the natural progression was to say, well, it's going to be 5-0, because I think we can keep a clean sheet as well. So I guess I'm going to have to go with 6-0 Arsenal in this game with
That's
a Havertz hat-trick.
ridiculous,
What's that?
Said that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous, but that's what we like here. We like
Yeah,
that's why we like silly predictions. Hence why Coquelin Screamer was always our prediction for so many years. Yeah, certainly I think 6-0 is wildly unrealistic, but fantastically ambitious. So 3-0, 3 goals from Havertz, Ben White Screamer in there somewhere as well. I'd love to see Declan Rice score another because it's just great seeing him celebrate because he says Arsenal like we are Arsenal. I love it when he says we when he talks about Arsenal. It's just great and it really winds up the West Ham fans. So that's certainly worth tuning in for. And then another goal for Eddie Nketiah just because, you know, it winds Alex up. So, yeah, we're going to go 6-0 and we're going to get some goals from those guys. Let's jump into the chat, shall we, and see what you guys are predicting. Cesar says 3-0, Ben White, Saliba and Gabriel. Vesman says 3-0 with Trossard getting 2 and Havertz getting 1, willing it into existence indeed. Bakary Lizane says 2-0 Trossard and Martinelli. So does Byron, but going for Havertz and Martinelli. Rancy says 2-0 Havertz with 2 goals. Amira says 3-0 Havertz, Martinelli and Tommy. I love that everybody is just kind of manifesting some kind of goal for Havertz. It's great. Keith says 4-1 to the Arsenal. US Arsenal fan says 4-1 Gunners Raya to get an assist. It's going to have to be a really long ball or like maybe like, I don't know. How would that happen? I guess it would have to be like a long ball, or you pass it to like Saliba and he just dribbles past everybody and scores. That'd be fantastic to see. But thank you to everyone that's joined us today in the chat box. Please do leave your very kind words for my fantastic panel of guests in there and in the comment section as well. Marcus, it's been a pleasure. I know I've not been able to engage with you like at all speaking, but it's been a pleasure to have you on the show, mate.
You've just enjoyed controlling my mic, I know. I have got earphones. I should have them at the ready for the next time. Usually it's the laptop, now it's the phone as well. So yeah, no, it's been great. I'm on the Discord and Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. I am MJC Gooner. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. Yeah, I haven't mastered the unmuting yet. I keep managing to cut myself at the end, but yeah, it's getting better, and I'll have to learn. Alex, thank you for coming on, mate. Always appreciate your time.
It's all right. Yeah, you can find me in the Discord as always. And yeah, hopefully can come on again soon. Although I don't want to come on too much, but we'll see.
You're all good, mate. I appreciate the commitment. It is very much appreciated.
No
and
problem.
Dave, what a fantastic debut! Thank you so much for taking that brave step and inspiring, hopefully, others in the Discord to take that step as well. But thank you for coming on, mate.
Thanks.
How can people find you?
They can't. You got to fly into New York City and keep driving west for about 4 hours till you see more cows than people.
Fair enough.
And then look on the golf course, and then you'll find me.
It's a good theme, though. Very good theme.
And I'm on the Discord.
You're on the Discord. There we go. There it is. No, fantastic, mate. Love it. Thank you so much for jumping on. Really appreciate it. You can find all the boys, as they say, in the Discord server and on their socials. You can see on the screen if you'd like to. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Very much appreciate it. Thank you all for your kind comments as well in this morning's comment section. That meant a lot. So, yeah, do really appreciate it. As I say, as soon as I have an ability to update you on everything that's crazy in this world, I will. Yeah, thank you so much for those kind words. It means a lot. So thank you for that. I'll be back, of course, with you guys tomorrow morning ahead of the game against Burnley. It's 3 p.m. kickoff, of course, so there'll be no TV in the UK showing the game. So you will have to find other means to watch the fixture. For those outside of the UK, of course, you're very lucky indeed.
NordVPN.
Yeah. What time is it? Yeah. Yes. You see, he's a solid subscriber and he's pulling out that. There you go. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It's very much appreciated. We will see you tomorrow morning. Have a fantastic day. And as obvious, well, I've never said that before in my life. As always, there it is. Up the Arsenal.